All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Wealth Building for Dummies podcast. I'm dummy number one, Kyle Demian, and I'm joined with dummy number two, Renji Matthew, here today. And today we're going to be talking about our stories and our journey. What got us into, wanting to build wealth for ourselves and our family, and then why we started going down the path of wanting to help others do it as well. So, Renji, if you want to start us off, kind of fill us in on your background and what got you started in the first place.
Yeah, so originally I've always had the entrepreneurial mindset. So I always knew I wanted to be my own boss. Not that I had bad bosses. I had great bosses and stuff that I learned from, but I always knew that there was a cap on my income as an employee, you know. So and the idea of passive income was something that I always looked for because I was like, okay, this is something that's actually possible. And I had some friends that did real estate and different things like that, but growing up, I didn't know if it was something that I would want to get into. And then the book, and we talked about this on a previous podcast, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Once I read that book, I realized the difference between an employee and an entrepreneur, business owner, all that, you know. So I realized, okay, so this is what I want to do is be my own boss. That way I can set my own hours and all that stuff. And so I started doing different things. The problem is, we've talked about this in the past too. My mindset wasn't always the best. So I would quit easily and stuff like that. Um, but how I got into the financial services side is because of my parents. When they retired several years ago, or when they were getting close to retirement, they asked me if I knew anything about retirements, like retirement accounts specifically. And I just knew the basics that most of us know because of the jobs that we work at and stuff. And what I found is, sadly, 90% of the financial services industry is set up in a way it can benefit you, but most of your money is going to pay commissions and fees, right?
Mm.
So the problem with that is, it's not a huge problem, especially because they're providing some kind of value. But on top of those fees, there's also people losing a lot of money in the market and stuff, right? Again, nothing that is wrong with what they're doing. It's just the market that you can't predict the market all the time. There's different research behind it and stuff that you can make your best assumptions, but it's still that an assumption, right? So, um,
Yeah.
I ended up getting my license to help my parents. And once I helped my parents, it spread to our family, friends, stuff like that. And I started helping people on the side. And then I realized, hey, I actually like doing this. 'Cause so my background is nursing. I used to work as a nurse. And this is in the beginning of COVID when I started doing this. And you could imagine, as a nurse through COVID, I was working two nursing jobs, working 12-hour shifts, and most weeks I was working at least 4 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week. So I was barely ever home. My my son at the time, he was probably 2 or 3. He probably was thinking, "Who is the stranger that's sleeping in our bed once a week?" You know. So it was I never saw my family. Didn't have time for family or church or anything like that. So you're making good money, but what's the point if you don't get to spend that time with family, right? So uh, once I started helping my parents, and I realized, man, I did that. Like, I think as a nurse, I liked teaching because I had to teach the patients that I'm with about their medications, or if they're going into surgery or after surgery stuff. Like, there's a lot of education that goes into that. So doing the educational side on the retirement side, it seemed the same to me, especially because in the beginning it was more older folks that I was talking to, people getting close to retirement or after retirement, and seeing a lot of people losing money in the market, and we've talked about this many times too. Some of these people were having to go back to work because they would run out of their money in retirement because of market losses and stuff. And some people would have to work even longer because they didn't have enough saved up. So I decided to go full time into this in 2022. And now along with you, Kyle, we try to teach people how to retire better, right? At least if you're wanting to do the traditional route of working till 65, at least we try to show people how to set up security for your retirement, like having secure accounts so that you're not having to go back to work or you're not having to, outlive your retirement or whatever. Just having that protection and having more of a peace of mind. And then also for people that are like us, that are more entrepreneurial, showing them different ways of getting into passive income too. So yeah, I think I've mentioned this before on one of our lives, not actually on the podcast. What actually tipped me to start doing stuff, because I was always good at doing research, but I never took action. Rich Dad Poor Dad was a book that helped me learn a lot of things and change my mindset, but again, didn't take action until I read a book called Chase the Lion. That is a great book. It helped me it put a fire under my butt to get get up and take action. So now, like in the before, I would always research a bunch and stuff like that, and then take action eventually if I do. Now it's all about taking action and then learn as I go, because yes, you'll make mistakes. You're never gonna not make mistakes. But if you learn from those and keep going and keep taking action, you're going to be farther ahead than someone like me when I started wasn't taking any action because I'm too scared of what could go wrong. But why don't you ask yourself this question? What if it all goes right? Right. So that was
Yeah,
a mindset shift I had to make too. I know I've been talking too long, Kyle. Now
that's
you
okay. Keep
tell us
going.
about yourself. Tell us about
Absolutely.
yourself and your background and how you got into this.
For sure. So for me, growing up, my mom worked a 9 to 5, in office. My dad was working a 9 to 5. Some days he was actually working like 9 to 9. So I never really got to, see him all the time during the week, especially when you're growing up and, you're in school. Sometimes, bedtime is 8:30, 9 o'clock before he's even getting home. And I knew that I didn't want to go down that path. I wanted to be there for my family, be home with my family. And so um, I guess before it was cool, I always wanted to have a work from home job, and be able to be there and be present for my family. And then it was in April of 2016. I was going to college for actually computer programming. I wasn't sure necessarily what I wanted to do, but at the time I was shy, used to not like talking to people, would get really bad social anxiety. So, I resorted to, hey, what degree can I get that allows me to avoid taking these oral communications classes, right? Or doing these speeches in front of people. And I found a college that offered a software development degree where I could go and take that and not ever have to do these oral communications classes. So that was the path I was going down. And in April of 2016, looping back to that, my we actually had an unexpected death in my family from my Aunt Linda. And it was due to proper financial planning and life insurance that like everything was taken care of financially when she was no longer there. Her kids got to grieve with their dad with the unexpected loss of their parents or of their mom. And everything was taken care of, burial, funeral, financially. I was still young at the time, but I didn't see any financial concerns. And then, fast forward a few months later during the same year, and there was an unexpected death in our community. And there was a GoFundMe going around, text message blasts going around, just trying to raise $10,000 for this poor family that lost their child unexpectedly, and they struggled to just raise, $10,000. And if you think of it, $10,000 is 1,000 people contributing $10, just $10. So just to create like that amount of money in that short of a time frame can be super hard for families. So I saw the two sides, and realized that I wanted to help people with life insurance and financial planning, because at the end of it, a proper financial plan and having life insurance just leads to so much more peace of mind financially when it comes to people's a death in a family is some of the hardest times that a family will ever endure. And then if you throw on top of it financial problems, that just leads to so much stress that could be resolved with prior planning beforehand. Right. So I saw that and knew that I wanted to help people, start to establish that. And then when I started learning about money, learning about, from rich dad, poor dad, that you can go from being an employee to a business owner and then to an investor, like you can start to control and take back your time. And then also when you're doing that, there, like you mentioned, caps on your income, there are no caps on your income once you become a business owner and you're an investor, right? I'd worked a couple jobs out of high school and in my early years in college where I was working harder than everybody else, but I was getting paid the same exact amount, right? And I asked for a raise and they're like, we just can't give you a raise. It's not in the budget, right? Or that's what we pay your position. And so like I saw myself continuously hitting this ceiling where I just couldn't go any higher in that opportunity that I was in. So I found a new opportunity with a higher ceiling. But once again, I realized that there was a ceiling there. And then eventually I got to a point where I learned about financial services in 2016 or so, learned that I could help people with financial planning, life insurance. And then in June of 2018 is when I officially got licensed and started learning a lot of things about money that I was never taught about in school. Wasn't taught about it in high school, wasn't taught about it in college, and just realized that there was a huge need in the world really for financial education. And that's what really got me started down my journey was, hey, I can make an impact on my family by making income without there being any ceilings or any caps. But most importantly, I could help each and every other single individual person that I talk to be better off financially after talking to me. And then that's kind of why, we got into doing our podcast and creating content. We're talking to people one-on-one, but how do you scale and how do you take anything to a larger level? You start posting videos that go onto social media that who knows who's going to see it. We both had videos that have gone viral and have had over 1 million eyeballs on some of our videos, just educating people about money and how money works and what the wealthy are doing with their money and their investing. So like some of these things have, just kind of come over time. It wasn't quick. Like I said, I've been licensed since 2018. It's going on my 6th year, but, over time, going back to, some of our past podcasts, like you're not going to be an overnight success. I still feel like we're not successful because we both know there's additional levels that we can get to. And that's just a part of the journey of being an entrepreneur, but it's every day, one step at a time, getting 1% better and, helping one more person every single day. And, that's kind of led us to our journeys of why we're doing this podcast. At the time, we're going live Monday through Friday and doing a podcast every single day. We've been doing this for over a month. So we've got over 30 or so episodes that are going to be published on YouTube now. And we're just doing this to help people, to take you from wherever you're at, to get you some exposure to some of this knowledge about building wealth and money that's available to hopefully help you, take your financial awareness to the next level, to help you start making better decisions with your money, to at the end of the day, help you get financially free. Because I was talking to somebody yesterday and like my vision is if everybody was aware on these concepts of money and how money works, like imagine what it would do for our communities. The neighborhood and the community I grew up in, it's average, middle class America. We don't have, necessarily too many millionaires living here, but if everybody was educated on how money works, if everybody had life insurance in our community, we would eliminate the need for GoFundMe's. We would eliminate the need for, people when someone passes away, people losing their homes or going through foreclosures or bankruptcies, which is the number one cause of, people losing their homes and stuff. And so like I see it from a 30,000 foot view. If everybody learns and knows how money works, it leads to people being happier and more prosperous communities. Instead of communities being, in poverty, they could be, on the, what's the opposite of poverty, I guess? I don't know. They could be
Well,
better communities.
yeah.
Wealthy communities. There you go. Sure. And it all starts from just learning the basics about how money works. And then when you learn how money works, you tend to make better financial decisions. And when you tend to make better financial decisions, it allows you to create a more prosperous and wealthy family. And then with that, you're leaving legacy and you're leaving your loved ones in better positions when you're no longer here. And like, that's what I see. And that's been, my motivation, my why I post stuff onto social media. why we go live with our podcast is it, all in all, like once you learn how money works, then you can start playing the money game, right? And start helping you and your family and start to build wealth. And so that's my story, how I got into it, why I do what I do. And, I think with that, that's about all I got to say. Renji, I don't know if you have anything else to wrap
Yeah,
us up with or any other insights you've got, but we've been going for what, about 15 minutes? So
yeah.
what else do you have
No,
for us?
I think that's awesome to hear your story as a whole. I think I've heard bits here and there when we talk and stuff, but um, honestly, guys, it's taking action. Like Kyle said, you can either be uh, living a normal life and just working and all that stuff, which again, nothing wrong with that, especially if you love your job and you want to work till, because I've talked to people that are like, I love my job and they want to work till 70, 80 or until they die, so there's nothing wrong with that. Um, if you're listening to this podcast, it's maybe to help you find other ways, right? Not just even if you're wanting to retire at 65 or 70 or whatever, and we're just trying to show you better ways to retire because traditional financial planning, traditional retirement plans like 401ks and IRAs and stuff, they're not bad, but there are things better. There are things so much
Yeah.
better out there for you because, especially with the market protection, so much more you can retire with. And then if you want to do what the route we're going with passive income, there's so many different ways to make passive income out there. Like we talked about, real estate is something we talk about a lot because that's what we like. But there's so many different ways to make passive income. And like we mentioned in the past, there's stuff we're doing too. Once we know that it's successful, we'll bring that to an episode. We'll talk about it and maybe even have an expert in that field come on and talk about it. That way you're not just hearing both of us talk about things all the time. But
Yeah.
no matter what it is, guys, it's all about taking action. If you want a better, if you want to live a better life, you got to plan better. And like I mentioned, the book that got me fired up was Chase the Lion. And in that, and Kyle talked about this a little bit, you have to have a why. And I think that's why I failed in my past businesses because I didn't have a why, and if I did have a why, it wasn't big enough. It wasn't important enough to keep fighting. And that's something I learned from that book is a phrase that still sticks with me is if your why is not big enough to scare you, it's not big enough. If your why doesn't make you cry, it's not big enough. And that made me think, I was like, wow, yeah, my I don't even know what my why was before that, but um,
Yeah.
there's so many things that we want to do, me and Nina as a family want to do, and like if we stuck to what we were doing, no way we could do that. I know God will make ways for stuff to happen, but he also gives us opportunities to get there too, right? You don't just say
Yeah.
God will provide and just sit back and do nothing. God gives you opportunities to take action. And if you don't take action, there goes that blessing that was meant for you. So that's what I will end with is take action because if you don't take action for your financial goals, no one else is going to care more than you do. So take action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you brought up a good point too that I wanted to talk on. Like, we do help people, wealth building for dummies. This whole idea of this podcast is to help people build wealth, that have time to do it. But also, like with our licenses and what we do for people is, retirement income planning. And that's for people that are in their 60s or maybe that are within like 10 years to retirement, where they maybe just don't have the time, capacity, or want to go out and build wealth and invest in assets. They're like, hey, I'm about to retire. Right. So we help those people with safe retirement solutions that a lot of times just give them guarantees that are not otherwise there to them, like in their 401ks or IRAs. But we help with safe retirement planning for them. And then for everybody else, that's wanting to build wealth, that has the time, aspiration, and maybe the goals to become financially free, before they're 65 or 70. Like that's what we're doing here in this podcast is first starting with the education, letting you guys know that number one, it can be done. And here's how. And then as we start to bring on guests, as we've already had one on, showing you how other people are building wealth, picking their brains, how they got started, what they're doing, maybe how you can get more education from them, and so forth and so on. Like, that's the idea of this show, is a little bit of both. Show you guys, like, hey, this is how we can help people that are about to retire, but most importantly, this is how you can retire sooner. And with that, I think that's a good way to wrap up this show. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know what questions you guys have for us in the comments below on money, taxes, building wealth, investing in assets, retiring. Whatever you guys got, let us know. We're here to help, and maybe we'll make a show on it. And until next time, make sure you guys follow us on social media as well. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.